And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPcast. I missed you guys.
We missed you.
Maybe some people didn't notice, but I've been gone for the last 2 weeks. Not to get sappy emotional, I had a daughter. The feeling of holding both my children in my hands is bizarre, surreal, a rush. It's incredible. So I have a lot of thank yous to give out. Thank you to Erica for hosting the show while I'm back. Thank you for Josh for staying sharp on the rants. Thank you to everyone who did the show. I can actually think back to a time when on my first paternity leave, I only took 1 week and I did everything. It's like hard to, I was so focused on trying to get the show off the ground.
Yeah.
That
it was the first month of the show.
It made it a lot more stressful. And I'm actually really glad I did it because the work that we put in now has led to being joined here with everyone, which is incredible. So I can't thank everyone enough. I sit and look at my life, and it was a really good example, time for me to just take a step back and gain perspective on what's really important. And it's fun to come here and talk about all these things. Don't get me wrong. It's one of the most exciting times to be an American Catholic in a long time, I'd have to say. But I got to go home to my 2 kids and my wife, and everyone's safe and healthy. And I cannot, it's hard to put into words how much of a blessing that is. And to be able to come back and hang out with you guys 3 times a week is one of my favorite parts of my life. And honestly felt like I missed hanging out with some friends 3 times a week. So thank you to everyone. And I appreciate it. Did anything happen while I was gone?
It was really slow. Nothing happened. No, it was crazy because I feel like every show that we did while you were out, we had some great guests. So like shout out to Steve Cortez, Seamus. It was fun. Rachel Bovard was a rock star on Friday. If you missed that show, I would recommend go and listen to her story of how to be a Sherpa in Washington, D.C. It was pretty great. But I felt like every show we did, we would get off the recording and then like some huge news story would blow up. And we'd be like, shoot, got to wait 48 hours.
Right.
Minutes later, right?
And that didn't, there wasn't like a meeting or anything that happened right after the show Friday, right?
Friday was crazy. Guys, we covered the mineral deal in Ukraine, how peace in our time, baby. We wwere ready. And then we got off the show.
Yeah. So I think that's maybe where we start. Josh, I think, a cool thing about being on paternity leave and just kind of taking a step back was I got to realize, I think, unless you're kind of connected to the information torrent that is Twitter, or maybe you subscribe to the Loop, which everyone absolutely should do. I think like stuff like this happens. I was watching all the reactions to it and no one really even talked about the mineral deal itself. And I know that you guys kind of covered this a little bit, but I think it'd be helpful for people who maybe aren't paying attention or weren't paying attention over the weekend. To my understanding, and the sources that I've read have showed this, Trump came to this meeting, Zelensky came to the US to sign a deal, a minerals deal. And I have a few details just in case we forgot, but it is a deal aimed to grant the US access to Ukraine's vast reserves of critical minerals, including graphite, lithium, titanium, and uranium, in exchange for continued support amid Ukraine's war with Russia. So Trump's really presented this as a transactional agreement, emphasizing U.S. economic benefits by securing minerals vital for defense, aerospace, and technology industries, reducing reliance on China, which dominates global rare earth processing. So this would be a reconstruction investment fund, with Ukraine contributing 50% of revenues from future monetization of state-owned natural resources, including minerals, oil, and gas. There's no specific security guarantee, which this is going to come up again. Pay attention to this. There was no U.S. security guarantee, although the draft stated that the U.S. supports Ukraine being free, sovereign, and free, sovereign, and secure. So we came, the deal was set out on a table. The itinerary was supposed to be this meeting, which was televised. Then we were supposed to do a lunch, and then the drafts were already laid out on the tables. Clearly,
ready to be signed.
That did not happen for people aware of this infamous meeting. Now, I do want to say before I pull up the clip, because I want to show the clip where it all went off the rails. What a lot of people missed as well was this was a 45-minute meeting. And Trump was speaking for most of it. And I really encourage, if you have not done this, because we're only going to show the part where it blows up, there's 40 minutes leading up to this. And the important context of that was Trump was nothing but gracious to Zelensky coming back to the White House, praising him for his leadership and courage, the Ukrainian people's courage, and said he was really excited to start this collaboration between Ukraine and the new administration, the Trump administration. I have to say, watching it, just off my personal observation, Zelensky did not get the memo. There was a lot of interjecting. There was a lot of eye rolling, scoffing. It was really kind of weird to watch because it felt like everything was kind of going how it should have gone, and it was just like really grating. It was really bizarre, but it really went off the rails here. I have it timestamped. I think it's important for us to watch again, but for people to know that this actually came after the 40 minutes. So I got to pull it up right here.
One more question.
I want to respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now the President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count one.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly
Remember
what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with world war.
And that's where it goes off the rails.
Yeah.
Long clip, I think necessary to watch.
Right
Josh, you've been awfully quiet today. I would like to hear your thoughts.
Oh my gosh. I mean, so there's that fallacy, like, you have to be there to experience it. That's not always the case, actually, by the way. And so you're telling me that J.D. Vance, a Marine who spent time in Iraq, wouldn't have an idea of what war is like? I got a feeling he does. So why don't you shut your mouth right there from the start? That was so annoying and offensive. And then it's like, if you're coming there hat in hand and begging, maybe you should, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, shut up. And be a little respectful. I mean, I don't understand this game. It's like, oh, you're going to feel like this. It's like, you don't tell Donald Trump how he's going to feel. Or you're going to feel regretful. No. Shut it. So I have to say this episode in the White House was at least entertaining and interesting. I have to say, I could give a rip about Ukraine. I mean, do I think it's unjust that the KGB dictator Putin invaded their country? Yeah. Do I sympathize for him? Sure. Do I want to send my sons over there to fight him? Hell no. Do I want to give billions of dollars of our tax money to him? Not really. No, thank you very much. And so I was, if he really wanted peace, he could have just bit his lip. And, that last question, just if he hadn't asked that last question, just would have went into the next room, could have signed these documents, could have moved forward. But now he's like, well, the rumors are that he's willing to sign the deal now.
But I think to your point there, Josh, it would be if he wants peace. And it's kind of becoming clear. I don't know if he does. I think it's getting further and further. He says he's going to come sign it. The way he acted today did not sound like he was ready for peace.
Yeah, and that's what Trump's response was. Well, Zelensky made it clear today in the Oval Office that he's not interested in peace. And when he decides he is, then he can come back and we can talk again. I don't know if I think Zelensky showed, he totally failed to read the room. I don't know. There were rumors as well that he'd been on the phone with like Susan Rice, people from the Biden-Obama clan prior to this meeting who said, look, you need to be tough with Trump. Don't take a deal with Trump. And he just completely failed to understand that the people who treat him like a rock star, who say he can do no wrong, Ukraine is, the next World War II where America's going to show how we are on the side of the good guys and save Europe. Those people are no longer in power. They don't hold the strings. Zelensky doesn't hold the strings. Trump was right. He doesn't have any cards to play. He's looking at over 1 million young men have died in this conflict. I think I mentioned on Friday, this is the worst conflict in Europe since the Stalingrad siege during World War II. This is a war of attrition. It's a meat grinder. And Zelensky walked in and he just didn't realize there is a new sheriff in town. And I think he was over his head. He's been listening to the wrong people. And he really screwed up here.
Well,
this was...
Part of it is that every leader, just bows to his feet to show how virtuous they are by helping him out. And as soon as this meeting went bad, he flew over to the UK, and there's the Prime Minister of the UK, like talking about how much he loves them and he's going to make it all work. And it's like,
oh wait, can I just put some numbers to that? Wait,
two corrections. One of them being, sorry, real quick, Erica. Peachy Keenan, I have to call a spade a spade. She made that up. She made the thing up about Susan Rice. That ended up, that was a claim by her. I'm not saying it didn't happen. That is where this originated.
And Susan, to be fair, Susan did come out and say, I never met with him. I've never met Zelensky. But I think it is fair to say that he is listening to the wrong group of people.
No doubt. I'm just saying in that specific point.
Yes,
that was
thank you. No, I appreciate
Keenan,
that.
and it's fair. Just for sake of honesty. And then number two, he didn't go straight to the UK. He went on, I believe, Brett Baer's show, right? Fox News.
He did go on with
and
Brett.
He gave him 3 opportunities to apologize for his behavior, and he did not. He didn't apologize for his behavior. Now, I do also want to address, sorry, before we get any deeper into this, I see Kathy Brenderson, and I actually know a lot of really people that I like and admire that disagree on this point, but the guy was invaded by Russia, and now he is being told to give land to Russia. Shouldn't Russia, who started this and invaded them, just be told to peacefully leave? Before I say my thoughts, do you have any? I hear this a lot.
No, yeah. I mean, peacefully leave? Like, okay, so what, we're just going to ask Putin, please, would you please leave? And what's his answer? No. That's his answer. So if we want to engage an army and force him to leave, then that's kind of World War III. And I'm not really interested in that. So that's the problem. Like, here's the thing. When you're talking about large, major world powers, whether it's China, the United States, or Russia, you can sort of get away with more evil. And I don't say that in a good way, but because the deterrent to you to get you out of that territory is really hard. So when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, the rest of the countries of the world were like, let's get him back out of there. Let's expel him from Kuwait. And we shouldn't allow someone to invade another neighboring country because, I mean, Iraq was like the sixth largest country military in the world, but like after like the fourth, who really cares? Because it just falls flat. My point is, if the United States, okay, let's say the United States wanted to invade Canada, what the hell would anyone be able to do? I'm not advocating this, but my point is, like, people are like, are we going to risk a war with the United States to expel them? Like, no. So that's my point. Like, Putin is able to get away with a little bit of this stuff. I mean, one of the ways that we've tried to do it is like not have a direct war with them. We give a lot of money and arms and aid to Ukraine, like a lot of other countries do, to try to make it more expensive, more costly, more arduous for Putin to do this. Otherwise, he would have rolled all the way through all of Ukraine if he wanted to, but he can't do that anymore. And so at this point, it's like, what are our options? Do we want to engage Putin and prevent him and remove him 100% from all the lands? No way. The cost would be too high. So we just, as I've said before, you say to Ukraine, give up a little land and buy your future peace for this way. I mean, we got this mistaken notion that after World War II, this idea of appeasement, like giving up any land, we can't ever do that. We have to settle for absolute surrender and all this other kind of stuff. Like, that's not the way most wars have been fought over the years. You have to cut your losses at some point.
It's also led to the deaths of thousands and thousands and thousands. That attitude is not a diplomatic attitude.
Millions.
Yeah, sorry, I underestimated that. And I think that's my takeaway from all of this. One, other than Donald Trump giving a very long leash to JD Vance, like, I think it really just shows a lot of respect that he has to him. He was basically a second president in this encounter, and I don't say that to try to offend Donald Trump. I think it's just a genuine respect for JD Vance as vice president.
Right.
But number two,
apprentice, right,
the apprentice. So I think that we need to wake up from this fantasy land, Ukraine at all costs. And Donald Trump, of course, being the consummate businessman trying to make deals. Two things that I see a change in approach. Number one, re-engaging Vladimir Putin and Russia in diplomatic relations. The Biden administration just put their head in the sand, echoed all the rhetoric from Ukraine, and just decided we're not going to meet with them. We're going to call them terrorists, and we're just going to beat our chest. But clearly that hasn't worked. We still have a war with showing no signs of stopping, especially after this. So yes, a new realpolitik attitude needs to be taken to diplomatic relations. And I think Ukraine's response by sending Zelensky here, hat in hand, but in a language that is not his first, in the Oval Office of the United States, picking fights, litigating things in front of national news that's going to become global news was an intentional choice. A very bad choice, by the way, because if you look now at public sentiment in Ukraine support, it's tanking. You saw pictures of the Ukrainian diplomat literally head in hands about to cry. I mean, those people wanted to get this deal done, but it was a really bold and bizarre choice to me to pick this fight here with seemingly your only friend here, one of your only friends. Europe can talk tough all they want. The UK can try to send what they want. They just do not have the sheer size and support that the United States has.
Yeah. Can I just put numbers to that? Because I looked this up. So Keir Starmer comes up and he's like, we will put boots on the ground in Ukraine. We are willing to we're going to make sure that Russia is pushed completely back, blah, blah, blah. So you look it up. The British military readiness right now is shockingly low. They essentially have on 24-hour call up less than a full battalion, right? If you add up all of the branches of the UK military, it's less than 70,000 troops at military readiness. Do you want to know how many Russia has? 1.5 million. And like how he got those, not ethical, very bad, lots of conscription. But basically, like Europe as a whole, they have no actual military power when it comes to, we're gonna back Ukraine now. I think Keir Starmer, he also offered Zelensky something like, we'll give you $2.5 billion over the next like X number of months. Like compared to the amount that we have sent over there, 2.5 billion is nothing. So
right now, for numbers, we're at 100 billion to 220 billion in dispersed funds from the United States. And that's not even the full,
pledge,
when contracts are completed, that's not even the full, but that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. So it's laughable. And I mean, we had today the video of Zelensky standing up with all the leaders of NATO. And like Trump said, I think right when we cut off the clip here, he was saying, you are playing with World War III. And that's the danger of these big alliances against a country like Russia. If they're going to push this all the way and embrace Ukraine in NATO, they are playing with World War III, because that's the only thing that would push Russia back to this like total surrender that Zelensky says he still wants.
I'm telling you,
it's insane.
If they get Ukraine into NATO, then it's the United States is out of NATO.
Someone in the chat,
have to get out.
Someone in the chat, I think it was Brian, wanted to talk about NATO's role in all this. Yeah. Erica, if you could just go back to, what is NATO? What was the original intent? How has it expanded to where it is today? Why is Russia mad about it? I think it's a fair question.
Man, I have my AP US history exam going on here. All right. Josh is probably better at like the founding.
Whoever wants it.
Yeah. And Josh, you do the founding of NATO. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, so it's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It was designed to protect Western countries against Soviet encroachment, because the Soviet Union was basically were controlling the countries of Poland and East Germany and other communist countries behind the Iron Curtain. And so the Western European countries came up with this alliance to try to make sure that we're all in it together. An attack on one is an attack on all. That's Article 5 of the treaty at NATO. And, why did this treaty still exist in 1982? That's the biggest question I have. The Soviet Union is done in 1991. It's donezo. So why do we still have NATO? And we started expanding it, and we started adding a bunch of countries. We even added like Finland, and it's like, what are we doing?
Sweden, famously neutral now in NATO.
Yeah, well, Sweden it's not like Switzerland, but yeah,
But Finland abuts Russia, right? So that's part of the issue.
Yeah, but Finland is less of an issue even than Ukraine, because Ukraine was once part of the Soviet Union. And again, Putin always wants to, he's the KGB guy. He wants to get, he wants to bring back the band. That's always what he wants to do. He wants all these countries that were formerly in the Soviet Union to be in the Russian orbit. So he doesn't really care about Finland per se. He cares much more about Ukraine. He cares much more about the Baltic states, less the Baltic states than Ukraine, because there's more commonality and ethnicities there with Ukraine. But, someone asked in the chat, what's to stop Putin from doing this again? Well, hopefully a strong, European countries, like having an army. As you just said, England doesn't have much of an army. Maybe if they had a police force that took care of the rape gangs, they would understand, they could get the job done. Maybe that's more important to them than trying to worry about Ukraine. But, again,
well, this is a multi-tiered problem, and part of the new approach to global diplomacy from the United States factors this in. Like, Europe has benefited from America being the global police for how long now? Decades. And they have actively
1945, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, they've actively not spent enough.
It's been 80 years, right?
Right. They haven't built up their own militaries. And why should they? If America's the big bad guy on the block that's going to go, punch people in the face for them. And so Trump's now saying, this is over.
It's not even that hard. We just have to say, we have the formulas built in. Like, you should spend 6% or 5% or whatever of your GDP on military, and they only do 2%.
Yeah.
Because all of European countries act like the city council in San Francisco. They just go totally crazy and spend all their money on stupid crap. And that's because, was the United States not? They're playing poker. Like, was the United States not going to protect us?
Right. And I don't like it. And neither does JD Vance. So there's a couple points here, because people are like, well, we should basically, so there's a left wing kind of religious worship of the Ukraine cause, which I think is completely irrational, especially when you look at the hard numbers. I'm just going to throw that out for a second. There's another approach that sees, and I call this the Mitch McConnell playbook, the AEI playbook. We can send these contracts over because 70 to 80% of this money comes back to the United States in form of Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics. Like, these contracts are going to bring jobs, manufacturing, whatever. So JD Vance is specifically targeting this, and there's a lot of people that really are angry about him for bringing this point up. But this is Matthew Iglesias. I agree with Ross Douthat that the United States should not fight a war for the sake of Ukraine, but for the actual issue at hand is whether we should continue to send military equipment to Ukraine, which is something we clearly can sustain indefinitely. And JD Vance put in his quote, which we can clearly sustain indefinitely, and said, actually, we can't. The next thing he brought up too is on deindustrialization. The bitter irony of America's present predicament is that the very people who cheer for the permanent arms shipments to Ukraine also supported the deindustrialization of America. The very things you want to send are things we don't make enough of. The argument here is that the people saying we should continue to send because it might actually bolster this industrialization in the United States. Josh, would you like to speak to this?
I mean, you should follow this under tweets from the Roman Empire. I mean, my goodness, like, well, we can do this indefinitely. This will never be a problem. We can buy. In fact, actually, another thing the Roman Empire did, by the way, Donald Trump, these are the jokes that people make about late stage republic. Donald Trump selling out, saying, oh, you got a green card. We should have a gold card. $5 million. If you're super rich, you could buy citizenship. Dude, that's literally what the Roman Empire did. How did that work out? Not so good. Not so good. But again, this is one of those things just like, well, we can sustain it indefinite because we've been able to do it for 80 years. Because for 80 years, we've been able to bear the brunt of the economic force. Like, again, a little history. I wish people would understand this. Why is the United Nations located in New York City?
Because we pay for it.
Where else were you going to have it? London was bombed to hell. Mm-hmm. You weren't going to have it in Germany. Hello.
Definitely not Asia.
Paris. I mean, Paris was, still, in fumes in 45. Right.
Europe,
so you have to have it. There was no place to have it in Europe. You have to have it in the United States. And we actually, again, we benefit because we have 3,000 miles here from coast to coast of the United States. We have,
a big, beautiful ocean, the way I said
150 now, 300 million people in this country. We are a major market economy. And we had this massive economic advantage over other people because we have free trade within all the states. There's no tariffs between Michigan and Ohio, right? So we built this massive engine of industrial strength because there's a few Japanese, came and bombed a little bit in LA for half a second, but like for the most part, we didn't experience anywhere the economic damage that Europe did. And so the war ends and we are at a comparative advantage over everyone else in Western countries. And they're dusting themselves off. They had a lot more, buildings blown up and people die. And we have this big engine roaring through the 50s and 60s. And then obviously it slowed down with the 70s because, but again, you start looking at where the United States was and this big engine of power. And we're able to who cares? We'll subsidize.
Yeah, the world.
We'll do the Marshall Plan, which, again, kids these days don't even understand it. Talk about generosity. We helped rebuild your entire flipping continent. Yeah. After we won. Who said we had to do that? But we did it because it's the right thing to do. And we were like, well, who cares if we subsidize their military for decades and decades and decades? Then you get this idea well, we've been doing it for now 80 years. Therefore, we can do it indefinitely. That's the kind of stuff that will bring you to bankruptcy.
Okay. Jump in here, though. That's the kind of stuff that has already brought us to a point where we are not in the position we were in the 50s and 60s anymore, guys. That post-war order is so exhausted. We spend more on the interest payments on our national debt than we do on our own military readiness and defense. That's unsustainable in a country. And for us to continue to have these elites who lecture us and say, we can just keep saving the world indefinitely. You're like, no, the bill has come due, guys. We are already at late stage republic in terms of the structure of our debt, where our money is going. And this is spending money we don't have. Well,
I would say in World War II, our debt to GDP ratio was worse than it is. It's like the worst it ever was, but that was because we're trying to fight this war to end two-front war on these major tyrants. And once we got done with the war, everyone understood we weren't going to keep spending it's almost evil to say drunken sailors because drunken sailors only spend their own money. But the idea here is
no shade on drunken sailors here.
There's this idea that we can't continue this ad infinitum, and we kind of would pull back a little bit from our crazy spending because we had the most colossal world war to ever fight. Well, what do we have right now? We're expending money at absolutely insane levels, And we're not actually in a direct war anymore. Like Iraq's over, Afghanistan's over. We're doing a proxy war with Russia through Ukraine.
Wars,
but like, what do we have to show for all the damn debt we have? This is what's frustrating about it. And I would point a little finger at the boomers. You guys didn't have enough kids. And so Social Security's now due.
Well,
like, we're in trouble, people.
What do we have to show
babies.
for it?
So thank you, Tom, for number 2.
Doing my part here.
You see how I got it all segued together?
But I will say, like, what do we have to show for it? And I guess what frustrates me about these, like the AEI guys or the think tank or the neocon guys, like the Cheneys or whoever, it's like they operate off the assumption that somehow this indefinite spending of tax money to put people in the meat grinder, which I actually, as a Catholic, find pretty unconscionable. What's going on in Ukraine, how we're treating it.
Right,
if we think that this is, worthy enough of U.S. military intervention, we should be using our own people, but we're not. Not only are we not doing it,
because we can't, because then it would actually be a hot war. A proxy war.
That's
really
what I'm saying.
Option.
So this whole thing feels like such a loophole, because
right.
if we actually did feel strongly enough about it to send our own sons and daughters, then sons, hopefully, daughters, who knows? Hopefully, that we got rid of that. We do it.
Harris didn't win.
But here's the like sleight of hand that pisses me off. Sorry for the language. I actually feel strong enough to use bad language on this. Mitch McConnell and the ilk are saying, no. Listen. All these Ukrainians are going to die. That's okay. They're going to die with our equipment that's going to come back to Alabama so we can start up the Northrop Grumman plant there and make all that money off of the bombs we're going to send over, whatever. So not only it's a double good, no Americans are dying, and we get rich off of it. Like, take yourself back from that for a second. That's evil. Like, how do people even get away with suggesting something like that in polite society? Drives me insane. Not only is this going on, we're just going to send $750 to people in North Carolina who lost everything, their homes, everything. Oh, California's going to burn. That's okay. We're going to have homeless in our country. Actually, we're going to be giving your money to illegal immigrants to stay in luxury hotels, Josh. I lived through the past 4 years. So you can't do both at the same time. This is why people are mad at JD Vance.
Which is why tomorrow's speech that Trump's going to give, address to the nation, is going to focus on all of this, actually. And he's going to say, I have decided to prioritize the needs of U.S. citizens, not Ukraine, not every other country in the entire world. I care about my own country. He's going to mention the floods in North Carolina and the fires in California. And he's going to talk about the fact that, again, how can we solve these problems? Someone in the chat, how do we get out of the debt? How do we solve these problems? It's actually political will. Mm-hmm. That's all it really takes. It's not insurmountable problems. I mean, how is it, like you look at the border problem over the last 3 or 4 years, like, what can we do about that?
I was going to say,
here's an idea, close it. And in February, we had the least number of attempts, across the border we had in like 10, 15, 20 years.
In 25 years, since 2000.
It was ridiculous.
Right.
It's like, why? Again, it was just.
We didn't need that bill in Congress.
So many conservatives are like, and Republicans are like, why is it that with such insanity? Like, don't they get it? And they just assume that the people in the Beltway, the people in power, the elites, it's that are they just stupid? Are they evil? What's the problem? Like, these are problems which are solvable, but we lack the will to do it. This is what I talked about like a few weeks ago when I said the subway station in Boston, they're going to open up. It's going to take them 15, 20 years, and it's going to take them $40 million. We built the, Empire State Building in like a year and a half. Like, it's all about what if we have the actual political will. But again, no, we got to spend time painting the plaza Black Lives Matter. We're in all this ridiculous stuff. It's
Josh, what about the transgender plays in Ireland? What about
how will the transgender children in Ireland know their true identity now?
So what's been nice, though, is like this populist revolt where people are like, wait a minute now, why can't we have a government that actually can secure our border? And you know what? You can. You just need to elect the right people. And, I will always credit and thank Mitch McConnell for stopping us from getting Merrick Garland on the Supreme Court and everything he did on the judicial fight. But he got massive Trump derangement syndrome, and his neocon bloodlust and cheerleading for the war machine because it's good for jobs is detestable. And I agree with you on that.
Thank you. Well, hey, speaking of those big news tomorrow, we will be live streaming the State of the Union address.
It's actually considered, the first one is considered the address to the nation. Yeah.
Thank you. The address to the nation. I'll make sure we have that correct in the title. So we will be live streaming that. That's going to be Tuesday at 8 is when that goes live. Right?
Bring your Mardi Gras beads. We're going to be partying.
Fat Tuesday. Maybe we should have some punchkis before. It'll be a good time.
I promise we will be eating. Yes.
Yes.
So we will be live.
I am hosting a Mardi Gras party at my house while we are live streaming the address to the nation. I am like, it's going to be great. Make sure you show
I like to joke with this.
8 p.m.
Like, was it Matt Swain? He's like, I'm one of the few Catholics who love Lent. I'm like, what? I'm like, you must be a good Catholic. He goes, no, I'm a bad Catholic. That's why I like Lent. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. I like that.
Sweet. All right. So hit 2 topics real quick before we get into the other side of the aisle with the Democrats. First topic, we have Trump making English the official language of the United States. It's done. The executive order has been signed. It is now the official language of the United States. How do you feel about this?
I've supported this for ever, since the day I was born. I mean, it really needs to be a law to be codified, but it is official now that he's done it this way. It just allows, unfortunately, future presidents could rescind this, but I think this is a great effort, and this is good. Again, this is just like what he did on his executive order on preventing boys from playing girls' sports. You can use the mechanisms now of the federal government to enforce this policy and not just appropriate funds, but then threaten lawsuits, put the screws on people. But again, all of these things could be undone by a future Democratic president. And that's why I keep saying this, like the Democrats have been so, corrupted with this crazy left-wing progressivism that we need a 12-year runway. We really do. Yeah. Like, we need not to, Trump to finish out this term and JD Vance to get 2 terms, and just really put the stake in the heart of this weird progressivist virus that has swept through the Democratic Party over the last few years. Because otherwise, again, and it's so hard to codify anything because you need that 60 votes to pass through the Senate to get any law passed. We were able to do it with the Lake and Riley Act, which is, again, I still can't believe it was amazing that it happened. Yeah. But of course, the Democrats are smart. They do a little token thing like that so that they can campaign, a few years later saying, I supported the Lake and Riley Act. And then you can say, yeah, but how about the other 15, 20 other bills that were really awesome that you refused to stay? So we really just got to keep the pressure on. But
so do you know, just real quick question, what this would do in practice other than being kind of a symbolic gesture?
That's a good question. Part of it is that, the federal government doesn't necessarily then have to pay for it to be on the ballot, like in all these different languages or whatever. It can say, no, it's all going to be in English, and you have to deal with it or whatever. So there's ways that you don't have to prevent, well, we got to make sure we have all of our paperwork and everything else and all these different languages. Like, no, English is it. And if you need help, we can help you. But someone said, I can't really take the European Union seriously until they make Latin their official language. I thought
that would help tremendously.
Okay. And then the other one is, I think this is more of a legal note. You guys may have covered this while I was out, but the Trump administration ends 2 refugee resettlement program contracts with the USCCB. I think this basically, to my understanding, just takes the air out of the lawsuit brought by the USCCB.
Well, they no longer are standing for the lawsuit because of that.
Right.
Right.
So it makes the lawsuit more complicated. I think they're going to have to refile it, in other words.
Got it.
So
it seems to me this suggests that the Trump administration was ready to deal with when all the aid stopped flowing out everywhere, that they're ready.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bishops still have some sort of ground on it because they're like, hey, you asked us, the federal government asked us to do something. We have done it, and then now we want to be paid for it. If that's what their argument is, and I'm not 100% sure on that, but if that's what it is, then I think they might have a case, and it might be able to adjudicate it. But just so people understand, that's a different case. That would be a different argument than and I'm not saying that they're making this. Other people have said, well, you can't cut off our funding because, the funding is important and it's good. It's like, sorry, no one is guaranteed federal funding. So if the federal government decides to change its path and doesn't want to do business anymore, that's one thing. But if the bishops are saying, I think this is what they're saying, so I'm pleading a little bit of ignorance, but if they're saying that we did the functions you asked us to, now you need to pay us, they probably would win that in court if that were the case. Okay. But that doesn't mean that, again, doesn't ensure future funding.
Yeah, curious. I think we'll see more in this, but I just wanted to bring up that legal note. That was the latest move in that, and I was out. So next one I wanted to bring up here. So I've seen a suggestion for Project 2029, which I have to say pretty bold to reuse the language of probably the most attacked thing of the last election cycle. So the Democrats need a Project 2029.
It's eye grabbing though. That's why they do it.
It sure is. I will say we're looking at the other side of the aisle here. I think a lot of people have brought up there really feels like the party's so reflexive anti-Trump that they're not really able to rally behind any unifying core principles at this point. And so if you look at only 40% of voters have a favorable image of Democrats in Washington compared to 54% who hold an unfavorable view of the caucuses led by Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. Favorability of congressional Republicans is split at 47% favorable, 48% unfavorable. So the argument, it's interesting. Two things happen at the same time. You get this, we need a Project 2029. We need to be ambitious. We need to capture the most radical, government changing arguments to be a part of the new party. And then you get this retreat that actually happened in Loudoun, Virginia, Loudoun County retreat from Democrat strategists, campaign staffers, elected officials. And so some of I'll do the takeaways from that, and then we could do the takeaways from Project 2029. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Well,
curious which direction they go.
To help you set it up, though, the retreat was by people who are calling for a third way. So these are people who think the Democratic Party needs to moderate, move away from the psycho far left.
Right. So a few of their points is the party should, quote, embrace patriotism, community, and traditional American image. I mean, already off to a great start.
Oh, man.
Traditional American imagery.
What a concept.
I know. How about that?
Maybe,
to appeal to American voters.
Maybe don't hate your own country.
I can't even get past the first sentence. Okay. This is pretty solid. Democrats should ban far-left candidate questionnaires and refuse to participate in forums that create ideological purity tests, move away from the dominance of small dollar donors whose preferences may not align with the broader electorate.
Well, the first one, Tom.
Yeah.
That's all about the ACLU questionnaire that Kamala Harris took in 2019, the run-up to the 2020 presidential election.
Surgeries for criminals.
Yeah. Right? So if the United States were to detain illegal immigrants, should they pay for their transgender surgeries? And she's like, yeah.
You bet.
I mean,
everybody loves the transgender surgery.
That's not even an 80-20, as we call it. That's like a 95-5. There's literally 5% of the population, 10% that thinks that's a great idea. The other 90% of Americans are like, what the heck are you talking about?
Yeah. Which that didn't bite her at all or give the other side an opportunity to create advertising that harmed the campaign. Not that I can remember, at least.
Man, the gift that kept on giving.
So next one, they should, quote, push back against far-left staffers and groups that exert a disproportionate influence on policy and messaging. Candidates should, quote, get out of elite circles and into real communities, e.g. tailgates, gun shows, local restaurants, and churches. And the party needs to, quote, own the failures of democratic governance in large cities and commit to improving local government. Let's just say the public reaction to this from Democrats wasn't great. They weren't thrilled about this. They said this is us becoming MAGA. Yeah.
Yeah. So. And you're like, wait, how is it far right to do things like visit churches? How is it far right now to do things like get out of elite circles and go to the Iowa State Fair? The reaction was insane. Because this to me is a healthier move for Democrats, to reflect. And maybe we did something wrong. That last point there, the party needs to own the failures of democratic governance in large cities. That comment got so much pushback in the Twitter sphere. They were like, what do they mean by failures in large cities? Do they mean the homelessness problem? And you're just like, guys, Brandon, what's his name, in Chicago has a, 6.6% approval rating. I'll round it up, give him 7%. Like, there is a problem. Karen Bass, Los Angeles, and the people in the comments are on the talk shows, the Young Turks are like, what could this possibly mean?
Well, did you see the latest example of the elite circles thing was there's a protest for JD Vance waiting for him in Vermont. I thought this was an interesting point. So if you see some of the signs, tawdry excuse of a president, we have Vance skis and jeans. Was the one that got picked up here.
Don't get me started on Vance skis and jeans. And one of the Democratic pundits is like, this was such an own. They totally got him on that one. Vance skis and jeans, guys. Okay, I grew up in New England. We went skiing like all the time growing up. It was just something that you did. Vance skis and jeans as an insult is such a rich kid, elite insult, because you know what? It was the kids in rural Rumney, New Hampshire who put on their jeans just to go skiing and have some winter fun, put on the jeans because that's what they could afford. It was the rich kids in Waterville Valley who were like, you're skiing in jeans and I have my snowboard pants on.
I got to say, like, that's not going to hurt JD Vance winning.
No.
One day.
No. This is exactly playing to what won him the election and what caused every county in Vermont to swing towards Donald Trump this past election, every single one. Oh, and in the country. Like, you go ahead. You keep insulting people who ski in jeans. I'm here for it.
Is this from personal experience, Erica? Have you skied in jeans before?
I have skied in jeans before. I did have snow pants, but like the snow looked good. I only had jeans. You go out in jeans. This is just, oh my God.
But this whole discussion that the third wave Democrats are doing, they're trying to lay down a marker because, what's probably going to happen is Democrats are not going to listen to this advice. They're going to double down on all their left-wing efforts, and they're going to hope that they're going to get a midterm victory. They might actually win the House. I mean, look,
Project
it's
2029.
a razor-thin majority. And so my prediction is that Democrats are going to completely ignore this advice. But it's interesting, like, what are the things that the polling has shown them? The American people are supporting Donald Trump's policies on the border. The American people support Donald Trump's position on getting boys out of girls' sports, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Americans are like, our big cities like San Francisco, Chicago, LA, New York, they're crappy. And people, it's not that it takes like a long memory. I mean, these cities were wonderful to visit in the 90s, in the early part of the 21st century. Now they've gone to crap. And who to blame? Like the one graphic I saw, 1945 and to today, it's photos of Hiroshima and Detroit.
Oh gosh.
And then it's of today, and it's like it's easier for Hiroshima to deal with the nuclear fallout, and rebuild than 7 decades of Democratic rule. Well, that'll do to a city. Now, here's the thing:
the Japanese, Josh. What do the Japanese not have in common with us in terms of their immigration policies? I'll say it.
Closed border.
And they don't have Democrats running their cities either.
That's very true.
No, but so Rahm Emanuel is the Democrat who's like trying to prevent Democrats from going off the cliff. And he gets on Bill Maher's show, and he had a pretty good rant, actually. I got it there for you in the clips there.
Oh, and that means a lot coming from you, the rant guy.
The rant king. Yep.
All right, here we go. This better be good.
I mean, you were just the ambassador to Japan. If that was your approval rating in Japan, they would do Hirakiri on live TV.
You're talking about the mayor of Chicago,
They would do it at 27.
I mean, what's going on in Chicago as the person?
Look, I mean, we were talking about this a little earlier. I mean, you have also the mayor of New York not doing well. Obviously, other things also here in Los Angeles not doing well, the mayor here. Look, and then you got mayors like the mayor of San Francisco and other cities that are doing well. So I would say, look, there is a general rule. I had this when I was mayor. Safe streets, strong schools, stable finances. Focus on those 3 things and your city's gonna be fine. We've gone through 5 years where people became way too permissive of culture. They were all, which is why everything's locked up at Walgreens and CVS, and that is a disaster.
Yeah.
And I'll say this about our schools. I don't wanna hear another word about the locker room. I don't wanna hear another word about the bathroom. You better start focusing on the classroom.
pushing back against the trans.
We had the worst reading scores for 8th graders in 30 years.
Yep.
And nobody, not a governor, not a mayor, not a president, not a secretary of education is talking about it. We're all wrapped up. Look, in 7th grade, if I known that I could have said the word they and got in the girls' bathroom, I would have done it. We literally are a superpower. We're facing off against China with 1.4 billion people, and 2/3 of our children can't read 8th grade level. So no more about the lie. Wait a second, I'm on a roll for a second.
This is you.
It is. It's Josh.
This is you.
It's Democrat Josh.
Another word about the classroom. I don't want to hear another word about the bathroom until you tell me what you're going to do with the classroom.
The audience is eating it up.
This is you.
Never thought I would say this, but I agree with Rahm. I mean, come on, guys.
Was he? So he was former governor.
He was the former mayor of Chicago. He was
chief of staff for Obama, right?
Yep, he was the chief of staff for the White House, the Obama White House. I mean, I will say this about Rahm Emanuel: he was a very smart guy, and he was the one that came up with the quote, "Never let an opportunity go to waste." And
good
he
crisis,
never did.
a really good crisis.
I mean, game respects game. He is brilliant, and I don't like him on most issues, but he's basically, this is his work. You know, he's not saying this to a conservative audience. He's saying it to liberals. He's like, wake up or we're going to get slaughtered again.
Speaking of,
may they reject the advice and go down the toilet, but you know, whatever.
Paternity leave documentary I watched. I watched a documentary on the Raging Cajun. What is his name again? I'm blanking on
James Carville.
James Carville. I watched a documentary on James Carville, and it was I want to say it was put on by CNN, which is just
very
random. I was with my dad, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I love James Carville. Every time I see him say something, I laugh. Like he's just hilarious." I actually don't know much about his life, and it turns out he was the strategist behind Bill Clinton's campaign.
Oh yeah,
and it was basically a CNN doc, and George Stephanopoulos was involved because I think he worked on Bill Clinton's campaign as well.
Oh, Snuffleupagus, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a slow march into James Carville being right about the 2024 election, and it was like, Biden's got too old. He's got to drop out. We cannot support Kamala Harris. Like, and then no one listened to him. And he's like, this is terrible. You're going to lose. You're going to lose. You're going to lose. And sure enough, they chose Kamala Harris. He said, I'm out. I'm actually not going to help. It was so bad that he got out. And we're talking about someone.
He was the Twilight Zone last summer for us. He was,
he loves the Democratic Party. Like he's an old school Democrat.
He's a commie too. Yes.
He's a commie.
Just like Rahm is, you know,
but just like Rahm. But again, on the game respect game note, like, I actually feel for the first time in my life, Republicans have gotten people in office that are like, they understand, back to the political will thing, they know what winning takes. And they're just basically honest enough to say that in order to do anything, we need to win. And I make this point all the time. I talk to my dad about this all the time. Like, I have no tolerance for principal losers at this point. I would take 100 James Carvilles on, our side of the aisle. That Nancy Pelosi, another great example. People that understand what it takes to win, because when you win, you get the chance to govern. And we've never gotten the chance to govern, basically from an America First perspective. And so that's why people like J.D. Vance are so excited.
But I agree with you. Whoa, we lost them.
Tom's gone. Well,
the reason I'd say that is because we are, I mean, again, we had the Cold War, which was a proxy war, from 45 to 91 against the Soviet Union and all over the world.
There's Rahm.
Who knows?
We want Tom, not Rahm. There he is.
But the thing is, I agree. I mean, we basically, again, I don't like the principled loser stuff. We have to fight, and we're going to have some, not all, again, not everything is going to be perfectly done well, and we'll have to beg for forgiveness and ask for permission later. But we need to win because, like, the enemies are at the gate, and are we denying that since 1968 it's been a second civil war? I mean, this is what's going on. It's that's what the sexual revolution has done. It has torn everything asunder, and we need to think anew.
I think in order to keep winning, we have to actually get stuff done. Like that was Rahm Emanuel's point, is that the reason why these mayors are struggling is because they took their eye off the ball. And what are the three things that matter most to people living in the city, right? It's the safety, it's the schools, and I forget what the third one was.
Tangible stuff.
Yeah, tangible stuff, which is why Trump's approval ratings are rising among like Black men. That's really important, and young people there, because he's actually shutting the border. He's actually showing political will in terms of America first with foreign policy. And then I think like the most important thing at this point is to get the Republicans in Congress on board with turning the economy around. Like that's what people are going to give them.
To complete your thought, I think you brought up a good point. Like Trump does that on the Republican side like no one else has done. He talks about the tangible way that his policies help the lives of the people who put him into power, and even those who disagreed with him. I'm still helping you because my economy is so much better. He was brilliant. Donald Trump was brilliant about talking about those tangible things in a ways that so many other Republicans were like, well, this is, blah, blah, blah. And it's all this theory. And so like, hey, what does this actually mean to me? And that's why I love to echo this 100 times until I'm blue in the face. Ron DeSantis won a landslide re-election in 2022. But his first election in 2018, he won by a sliver. He barely won. We were that close to having a total cokehead as governor of Florida.
That's not an exaggeration, too, funny enough.
He was total cokehead. Yeah. And the thing is, how did Ron DeSantis win by that tiny sliver of a percentage? The Wall Street Journal said it clearly. It was because of Black moms and Latina moms who were happy that Republicans in Florida had been there for them on school choice. It was a tangible way that they made their lives better, and it was real. It's what Republican policies had done for their family, and they went, I'll vote for this kind of white dude instead of the Black guy because there's a black guy running. And Mercer, I tell this, like, that's why we need to get school choice in Texas, people.
Go for it, Erica.
Mercer, I love it when you finish my thought for me. I just had one thing to add to that, too. I think this is why the DOGE as well has surprisingly gained so much approval for Trump, the cutting of the government waste, because people will say, okay, well, the administrative state, it does so much for the American people. They have these experts who help us run. The Democrats have underestimated how much Americans, especially Americans who own small businesses and in small towns, how much they have suffered under the expansion of the federal bureaucracy and the regulations that stifle their small businesses and that deindustrialize the heartland. I think that seeing that is another way that the Trump administration is making a tangible difference that will redound in the next 4 to 5 years, that they'll start to see the relaxing of these regulations and the dismantling of the state, bringing back actual tangible improvements to people's lives.
That is a perfect segue to my Twilight Zone.
Oh, look at that.
Before we do again, because I saw this and I think about this all the time. The youth, if we talk about the strategy, the messaging, which party's appealing, how to make your life better. Every time you're a little bit tight on a rent payment, every time you have to pay back your outrageous student loans that you had to take on in order to get a good job in the economy. Anytime you see jobs that you had availability to go to someone not even from this country, doesn't have your citizenship. Anytime you live in a dangerous city and you just see crime not happen, you think where that money's going. I'm not even saying that this is fake. Like, this is my life. I experience this personally. People I talk to experience this personally. And you see $120 billion go towards Ukraine. Not only are you told you should be thankful for this, this is good for you, but you are watching your money being sent overseas while you as an American are. That's why I don't think people understand.
And if you oppose it, you're a stooge of Putin.
You're a Russian asset, you're whatever, which is just nonsense. If you look at the polling, it makes sense. If you talk to people anecdotally, it's no surprise. And these, of course, are people outside of elite circles. These are people just living in rural Indiana or wherever you live. It is so unpopular right now. This war is so unpopular, and the answer that it's going to be prolonged and our money's just going to continue to go their business as usual is so unpopular. And so I don't think the people that are criticizing J.D. Vance here or Trump here understand the real sentiment on the ground. It is overwhelmingly people support ending this war in a peaceful fashion. Not only do we get peace, we get our money back. Like we're done. It goes hand in hand with DOGE. DOGE is doing a good job showing all the waste, what they're cutting. Go on Doge.gov to see it. And then you're seeing people stand up for you. I'm seeing J.D. Vance stand up for me, an American, to the world stage saying, we're done. We're done sending blank checks. We're done continuing endless wars and telling you that it's good for you. It's not. It's back to America first. And I can't be more thankful for the representation I'm seeing. And no one's going to shame me into saying, and certainly no little petty dictator is going to tell me how I should feel as an American. I mean, that was what really snapped Trump out of that meeting was, you're going to feel this. And he said, you are never going to tell me how I'm going to feel ever again. And I felt that in my soul. I'm like, all I've done is get preached at for the last 2 years by the Biden administration, all those people, about how I should feel about this. And that's over. Done. So sorry, into your Twilight Zone now, Josh. What do you got for me?
Well, so there's this clinic in India, and the former clinic official said, we have been serving hundreds of transgender patients, providing mental health care and transition-related medical services. We stopped operations in early February with no hope of resuming. Why did they shut down? Because you, the American taxpayer, are no longer having to subsidize them. That's right. DOGE has cut them off. No grants. So you can thank your vote for President Trump, who gave us Elon Musk and Marco Rubio, for cutting off funding, taking money from taxpayers in Ohio and Idaho and California and giving it to a transgender clinic in India. It is absolutely baffling to me. Like, why should I pay? I mean, I don't want any of my money to go for transgender surgery in this country. Why would I want to go for another?
And then
country?
export it. Yeah. Unbelievable. Yep. Cut that off. Oh, wait. Was that too?
Hello.
All right, Erica, what you got?
All right. So the Oscars were last night. Rachel and I, after Josh got off the show on Friday, Rachel and I did our best to like do an Oscar thing, and neither of us are really Oscar type girls, so it got pretty awkward pretty fast.
Wait. You don't like transgender Mexican cartel films that
I mean, we went
that
through
doesn't
the
stimulate
Amelia
the
Perez
imagination
thing. We went through the Honora, the Jewish prostitute porn show that ended up winning like 4 Oscars, and like,
your thing?
yeah, no, it was really bad. It was really bad. Dune 2, which was the only film I saw, I think, of the lineup, didn't get anything. So, oh well.
Timothy Chalamet is the man, by the way.
Timothy Chalamet's pretty
Timothy
cool.
guy.
Yeah, he should have.
He's the man.
All right. But there was one acceptance speech that is making the rounds. I was going to do fashion, and then I didn't have time, and I don't care. So I'm going to go with the acceptance speech from Kieran Culkin. Yes,
Nice.
of the Macaulay Culkin family. I mean, he had a kind of a rough start, rough go, but child actors, I always worry about them. But he seems to have landed on his feet, and this was refreshing. So it's a little long, about a minute and a half. So we could go ahead to about 20 seconds. Yeah.
I love you, Jazz. This is, I have to thank my wife, Jazz, for absolutely everything, for giving my favorite people in the world. Please don't play the music, because I want to tell a really quick story about Jazz. About a year ago, I was on a stage like this, and I very stupidly, publicly said that I want a 3rd kid from her, because she said if I won the award, she would give me the kid. It turns out she said that because she didn't think I was going to win. And people came up to her and were like, really annoying her. I think it got to her. But anyway, after the show, we're walking through a parking lot. She's holding Emmy. We're trying to find our car. Emily, you were there, so you're a witness. And she goes, "Oh, God, I did say that. I guess I owe you a 3rd kid." And I turned to her and I said, "Really, I want 4. And she turned to me. I swear to God, this happened. It was just over a year ago. She said, "I will give you 4 when you win an Oscar."
Oh, let's go.
And she's laughing. So
she
cute.
shook it, and I have not brought it up once until just now. You remember that, honey? You do? Okay. Then I just have this to say to you, Jazz. Love of my life, ye of little faith.
Got it, man.
No pressure. I love you. I'm really sorry I did this again. And let's get cracking on those kids. What do you say?
He's so sweet about it. It was, that was awesome. And I just love that he gave that speech in Hollywood where like, I mean, like all of these deranged films and just such a culture of like anti-life and anti-child. It was really refreshing to hear that. And hey, I would say 4 is a great number. 5's good too. I've enjoyed 7. It's great. So go for it.
I'll take that over. I'll take that over someone lecturing me about green energy or the climate
the
crisis.
land acknowledgement too. I had the land acknowledgement clip, not worth, but it's just, oh man, everything else on the Oscars, no, but Kieran Culkin, a moment of clarity there.
Do you guys have deeper thoughts on why the Oscars have become like culturally extinct?
Yes.
I feel like there's no actual.
Yeah, it's the same reason why the Democrats are becoming extinct politically, because
they used to mean something. Like you go back and
oh my gosh, they used to be massive for decades.
Huge.
Yes, of course, and people talk about them.
What happened?
Well,
when did it go wrong?
They lecture you enough, like I got to use my platform to speak truth to power, and scream at Americans.
You are the power, you ding dong.
Give me a break.
Yeah, I think there's the lecturing, and then the films and the actors and the directors who are chosen by the Screen Actors, whatever, to actually receive nominations. That's become such a political process, and it's gone so far in the opposite direction of what normal Americans want to see for their entertainment. The abandonment of stories. I mean, like I said, Rachel and I went through the nominees for Best Picture, and the joke is 50 or 60 years ago, the Oscar nominees for Best Picture, everyone would have seen them and been like, oh yeah, I saw that one. That one's pretty good. These are like crazy films that nobody, with maybe the exception of, they're obscure. They have some kind of message that is like, you dumb, ordinary Americans need to be, taught by this elite class of Hollywood people. It's communism too. I could go on, but I think it's the same reason why Democrat elites are like, why don't people like us anymore?
Because you yell at us for skiing in jeans.
Yeah. I want to ski in my jeans, especially when you fall down and they get wet and then they freeze on you. I mean, that is hardcore skiing, guys.
I tried skiing one time and it wasn't pretty. I was like a bowling ball and toothpicks. So I stopped doing that.
Josh.
Well, I don't want to think about that, but I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot more here to think about. But like, for example, Francis in the chat talking about how an Oscar went to The Godfather, and now like even the movies that they're giving them to or the actors that they're from, like, first off, no one's watching them. And they're also
The Shape of Water a few years ago. I was like, who's seen that?
They're not watching them, and it's bizarre too. Like the stripper movie, the trans movie, like these aren't even movies with like large audience acclaim. Like has it moved to YouTube? I don't understand.
Okay, there's the economics here at bay too, though. So like used to be movies, you could only see it in the theater in the 60s and 70s. You would not be able to see it unless you went to go see it in the movie theater, right? Mm-hmm. And then home video came along, and you could watch it at you could rent
the VHS tape.
VHS tapes. Well, then there's economics behind that, though, because then they would sell the movies and they would rent and that kind of stuff. So if you put out a movie and it didn't do well at the box office, it would still have a chance to making money on VHS tapes or TV rights. Like Shawshank Redemption was a bomb at that. It did not do good at the box office at all, but it ends up on TBS 100 million times, and people catch it and like, oh, I actually like this.
It's a great
and
movie.
So it does okay. There's nothing like that today. There is no DVD market. No one buys movies, anymore. Like I used to buy movies all the time in the 80s and 90s, in 2000s. Like, but hardly anyone has physical media where they buy this stuff anymore. So that economics is gone. And the second thing is, I'm not big on The Sopranos necessarily, but what The Sopranos did in 2000 was change things so that there's a lot more emphasis now, because it used to be for TV, you wouldn't be able to show a lot of sex or violence or anything like that, because you're on broadcast TV. But with cable and then premium cable, which is what Sopranos was for HBO, the HBO's like, do whatever you want. And they did. And that's not necessarily a good thing. I'm not saying that. But what it did is unleash a golden age of television. There's so many good writers and stuff in TV now. And so movies are kind of like forgotten about. And so I think that's ultimately what it is. Like all the best stuff, like Apple TV, like For All Mankind, that show. I love that show. And it's got 3 or 4 seasons of it.
Yeah, the limited series for sure has taken some.
So I think that's people, because when you got streaming now, I'm very much, I think, a normal customer like this. Like it's one thing to watch a movie for 2 hours. Oh, that was really cool story, but like to me, I'd rather have a show,
a series. Yeah.
So in the streaming era, if I find a show that my wife and I like, well then, gosh, now we're set for 30, 40 hours because we like it.
Same,
so right? Or more. Yeah.
I watched, speaking of sweet old movies, I don't even know if this is considered old, but I watched The Departed. It's awesome.
Oh,
So
I actually haven't seen that one. I'd like to. Okay.
It was so sick.
On
I got
my
into the
list.
mob stuff for
For
sure.
after Lent, we're gonna try and cut down screen time for Lent here.
An adult film,
yes.
but awesome.
Right.
Okay, My Twilight Zone. Look,
a film for adults.
Film for adults. Yeah. Thank you, Josh.
Good distinction.
Although to be fair, that was highlighted at the Oscars. So
I understand.
Anyway, okay. So here's. It almost frustrates me to do this. I'm not sure if you guys covered this. This is one of my biggest irks or pet peeves in general with the Catholic shepherds, our bishops and cardinals. Timothy Dolan, he does these. He's got a radio show, I think, Cardinal Dolan. And I'm not even like, a big like him, don't like him, whatever. Like I have respect for him. He's Cardinal, of course. So he sits down, tells this story about being in an Uber with a Muslim during Ramadan, and said he wouldn't drink water. It's like, wow, I really appreciate the fervor, whatever. So here's the tweet. Ramadan starts tomorrow. Ramadan is the season of penance for our Islamic brothers and sisters. Do they ever take it seriously? ! I tell you that because Ash Wednesday is coming up. That's kind of like our Ramadan. Kind of is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. And I actually got into an argument with someone who said that Lent comes out of Ramadan. I'm going to hear on the show publicly say emphatically, no, they actually have nothing to do with each other. Like I drink water, Hitler drank water. We're the same. Like, are we just in the business of making shallow?
And maybe don't talk about fasting while you got a cookie in your hand. I don't know.
I mean, he's done this for 2 years in a row. He may have done this even longer. It is so dumb. Stop doing it. I don't want to hear any comparisons.
It's counterproductive.
It's counterproductive, especially as you are supposed to be in charge of making sure that we take Lent seriously as Catholics. This is on you. And you're talking about how Muslims take it more serious than we do. Whose fault is it? It's not mine. And if you even wanted to go down the inspiration route, you're a Catholic cardinal. Mm-hmm. Use a Catholic example. It's not like we have a treasure trove of saints and martyrs that took their faith very seriously to the point of dying for it, to look to for examples of how to take the season of Lent seriously. I'd like to bring up a few examples for everyone to think about here, because this just drives me insane. I hate the comparison. I actually don't have any ill will towards Muslims. I respect that they take their religion seriously, but I take my religion seriously and I believe my religion. Therefore, I think that they're wrong. Like, I think that they can be wrong. And I think that this is a Christian heresy, but do your thing, right? I'm Catholic. I would like to get Catholic examples and think of Catholic theology. The comparison doesn't make any sense. They don't fast for the same reasons. They don't have a word in their dictionary for sanctification. Mm-hmm. It's not theologically compatible at all. I appreciate that they do it rigorously, but I'm Catholic. I'd like to do my thing rigorously. What are you saying,
in general,
it drives me crazy.
In general, the idea that they pray 5 times a day and they have these month-long fasts or whatever, the rap in a positive way on Muslims is that they take their faith seriously. And insofar as he could say, shouldn't we do that as well? And he's not speaking to Tom Bagasic. He's speaking to the Catholics who kind of, I guess they'll give up chocolates. It's like, step up your game. Now, he didn't say it quite like that. So I think it was a missed opportunity.
I think that too. I mean, someone brought this up online. It would be great if he would educate Catholics about our fellow Catholics who do observe much stricter fasts, and that would be the Eastern Rite, right? So they do a much stricter fast than the Latin Rite do, and like why not hold them up as an example? People who are our neighbors, who are in our cities, we can go and visit their liturgies and participate and learn about that tradition that's also part of the Roman Catholic faith. Why hold up Ramadan other than like it's multiculturalism? I don't know, and like relatable or something. But
I don't like it.
Yeah, I just
maybe I'm more extreme than most people.
I was just at St. Patrick's Cathedral 10 days ago for the 125th anniversary of the Knights of Columbus' Fourth Degree. My son got to serve this beautiful cathedral during communion. This amazing singer sang St. Patrick's Lorica, and it was so moving. And I was like, Cardinal Dolan, what about St. Patrick? I mean, there's an example we could use. Totally. Who's not a Muslim holy man.
I mean, he undertook a 40-day fast in the mountain, now called Croak Patrick.
He drove snakes out.
And then he went and evangelized Ireland. St. Francis of Assisi got the stigmata during this 40-day fast. St. Catherine of Siena
although his
limited
fast,
herself to water and minimal.
Actually, he got a stigmata during a fast, but it was during the St. Michael's fast. You know about that?
No, what is
in the fall? Fast?
St. Michael's Fast is after you celebrate the solemnity of the Assumption on August 15th. You do a fast for 40 days until Michaelmas on September 29th.
Archangels, 29th. Yep. Pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
But I don't know. Take it for what you want. But I just would like Catholics and the Catholic Church to take themselves seriously. And I'm frustrated with like what would make us not take ourselves seriously. Dumbing down the liturgy, the Kumbaya masses, being confusing theologically in terms of what we believe and what's good and bad and whether or not hell exists. I mean, like we're so like poorly catechized as a whole, I think. And the people that really sincerely desire that should be able to get that from their shepherds instead of, well, look at these other guys. They do a great, better than us. Maybe you should look to them.
It might be nice if the bishops in the United States would echo what the bishops in in England did and reinstitute the abstinence from meat on all Fridays through the year, not just in Lent. Because you can alternate with a different penance outside of Lent. Why don't we just have it so that you just don't eat meat on Fridays, period, all throughout the year? Boom. That would be the better way to do it. That would help to start to understand and take it a little more seriously.
Oh, and shout out to Francis in the chat. Yes, I did see the statue of Father McGivney. It's beautiful. And fun fact, our parochial vicar here at our parish, Father Joe McNeil, he was the artist's model for the statue of Blessed McGivney. And so at the Mass, he was there and the professional photographer had him stand up next to the statue and like do the blessing sign so that he could get a picture next to the statue. So our parochial vicar, shout out Father Joe, he is now in St. Patrick's Cathedral until the end of time.
Sweet. Well, it was a great episode. Happy to be back with you guys. If you want to help on the show, join the Champions Club. It's the best way to help us out. CatholicVote.org/champions. Or you can email me, loopcast@CatholicVote.org. I've been a little bit slow. Shout out to Erica and Josh for handling the
I sent a lot of emails. Yeah.
Although you guys, to be fair, were saying things that I could not be held accountable for. So I feel like it was kind of nice. So I was like, okay, I can't be answering for Josh all the time. But yeah, very fun show. So again, reminder, we're going to be live streaming the Address to the Nation is the correct term. Thank you, Josh. If that starts at 8 p.m. Eastern time, I'm sure we're going to hop on.
It's actually 9 p.m.
Nice.
Speech is 9 p.m. So we'll hop on a little earlier. Just watch the loop tomorrow morning to find the time.
Yeah. We'll hop on a little bit earlier. But yeah, we'll make sure it's included in the loop. It'll be live. Come join us. It's going to be a good time. But yeah, best thing you can do, pray for us. St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Pray for us. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.